Good afternoon, fellow weather watchers, and firstly we're going to open up with the 24-hour rainfall figures to 9 o'clock this morning. We have seen some brilliant rainfall, and just like modelling expected it to, bit coastal. However, we've seen some very heavy falls, over 100 millimetres to the south of Mackay. We've seen falls near the Whitsundays of near 100 millimetres or just over 100 millimetres. We've seen some excellent thunderstorm activity in the Townsville area. We've seen excellent thunderstorm in and around Ingham, Cardwell region. We've seen good showers and storms over the southern burbs of Cairns and further south. And we've seen some excellent rainfall totals inland too, of moderate falls, and some very heavy rainfall over the Gulf country as well. So the entire populated region of the state, even as far as southeast Queensland, we see a fair bit of rain as well. So the entire populated regions of the state were looking quite good. The change that we were talking through went through Rocky, and Rocky did get a thunderstorm or a shower yesterday. However, the heavier stuff tended to be, as we said, it was going to be north of them. By looking at yesterday's trace, we could definitely tell you that most of the stuff is going to be to the north. So excellent rainfall figures statewide. Okay, if we look at the aerological diagram today for Townsville, we're looking at a total value of 44, which suggests that thunderstorms are possible and even likely again today. But if we have a look here, the component of the winds anywhere from the surface all the way through to 400 hectopascals pushes everything westwards from the east to the west. So we have an onshore flow now and even a northeasterly flow. Townsville does very well shower wise when we get a northeasterly flow in this region here, 2 or 3 kilometres above the atmosphere. If we can couple that with a nice fresh or moderate easterly flow at the surface, we tend to see very good rainfall in the Townsville area. So totals of 44. We've got lifted indices of negative 3.6, so that means that the red temperature line is definitely to the left of the grey the grey atmosphere line. If we get any sort of heating today, we're going to potentially see further instability or enhanced instability. So once again, places inland are in line with the chance of showers and storms. Okay, in Townsville we see the precipitable water values of 56 millimetres throughout the sounding of the atmosphere this morning. That suggests that there's a lot of moisture, and you can tell here looking at the red moisture line and the red temperature line. See, this is the moisture line to the left, temperature line to the right. You can see how close they are together. So a lot of moisture through the entire level of the atmosphere. Because of that moisture, we're not expecting severe thunderstorms because the atmosphere is not cooling fast enough with height. If we had a little dry patch here where the atmosphere got to cool very quickly, we might have seen some severe activity. Today's storms are likely to be rainy. Definitely looking at the chance of some moderate to heavy falls with them because they're only going to be moving fairly slow. And we're looking at, once again, overnight precipitation on the coast as well. So we'll go straight into the model data to have a look at basically the Cairns to Rocky region. So we can see, using the Euro model as our guide, we can have a look at this afternoon where we're looking at thunderstorm development. We're particularly looking at this area on the Burdekin coastline all the way through into west of Collinsville as a definite hotspot region. We're also looking at this area near Yeppoon as a little bit of enhanced activity, and also on the coastal hinterland. You can see here just a little bit of upper level. If you look at this little blue line here, a little bit of upper level or mid-level cooling in that area just to the west of Mackay, so we could see enhanced instability values there. We also see this afternoon this fairly fresh southeasterly surge pushing up the coast, in fact making it probably just to the north of Yeppoon by the 4 p.m. this afternoon. So we're looking at this, the colour coding here is wind speed in knots, and the arrows are pointing in the direction of the wind. So we're looking at this southeasterly surge at the surface, and if we focus in on that southeasterly surge as we progress to 7 p.m. and we can see there, and 10 p.m. tonight, we can see there it's even pushing well up the coast, and it's getting moderate in nature, 15 to 20 knots really we're looking at through the region. Looking by Friday 7 p.m. we see this continual enhanced area of instability here just to the south of Charters Towers and to the west of Collinsville, and we continue to see fairly good rainfall totals just to the west of or southwest of Mackay, between Mackay and Moranbah. We also have some thunderstorm activity developing. Also over the northern Goldfields, Upper Flinders, we didn't mention by 4 p.m. There seems to be a lot of activity over the northern Goldfields, Upper Flinders today, and even pushing into the northwest, which is outside of your screen and outside of our area of scope. But just be aware that there is going to be widespread thunderstorm activity this afternoon, this evening. By 10 p.m. tonight, things start to become more coastal again. We're looking at that southeasterly flow that I mentioned. We're looking at this little trough developing just offshore, and we're continuing to see some very heavy, or some moderate to heavy, I should say, rainfall again. This is by 1 a.m. developing just off the coast, and that, remember, that flow that we just showed you on the skew T, or the aerological diagram, showed that everything's going to be moving east to west, so that rainfall should push onto, or those shower activities should push onto the coast. However, the trough itself sort of remains just offshore. We see a little weak low developing here, but nothing really of note. This is by Friday 4 a.m. By Friday 7 a.m. we see a bit of a clearance. Friday 10 a.m. though, and bang, she's all on. This is where our trough develops. We've got some very unstable mid-levels in here, so the mid-level winds are quite unstable, and the surface troughing is really pronounced in this region here, just to the east basically of Port Douglas through to Rolling Stone, even as far south as Townsville. So that region could be looking at, and look, we're still looking at a reasonable onshore feed here, producing some showers through the rest of the coast as well. This is by 1 p.m. tomorrow. We see extreme instability values here around Proserpine, into Mackay, south to Yeppoon. Most of the activity now becomes quite coastal though, so Charters Towers is about as far west as things get. We see some showers and that further west, but the real intense stuff you can see here over to Townsville, through to the Burdekin. If we zoom in, particularly for our Proserpine or for our Central Coast with Sunday's residents to this area, or this hotspot area, we're looking at right in through here, just to the east of Proserpine, between Proserpine and Airlie Beach. There's a few mountain ranges in there, not very tall, but maybe enough to enhance instability in that area. Also, the ranges to the west of Mackay look like picking up a fair bit. These numbers down here are in inches, but remember, we're not too concerned about numbers, we're just concerned about where the instability values will peak. If you get under one of these showers in a slow moving shower, and it's going to be very heavy, so these numbers could be blown out of the water. So don't pay too much attention to the numbers, just pay attention to where those numbers are occurring. So we've got this big area of instability tomorrow afternoon, and even as we push north towards Townsville, we see this area from Stewart, basically the southern suburbs of Townsville, all through to the Burdekin, which is quite an area that's been missing out on a lot of the rain recently. So Townsville itself's picking up a fair bit of rain. In fact, this wet season so far for Townsville is average to slightly above average. So, but places further south are not seeing that rain. It's very localised. So, and we've also got the northern suburbs and even parts of the western suburbs. The typical area that misses out is that Kelso region, which is in that rain shadow effect. So when we get a southeasterly, it hits the mountain range, which is just there, so it hits the Bowling Green National Park just to the west of that, Mount Stewart, Mount Elliott, and then sort of dries out a little as it gets in towards Kelso and even the southern parts of Kerwin or Rasmussen. So that's for those Townsville people, for your own knowledge. But if we zoom back out and continue on with our progression, this is Saturday 1 p.m. This is now Saturday 4 p.m. and we now start to see that activity pushing further west. So as this moisture level creeps back inland on this easterly stream, so while we're in surface ridging, we're not into a situation where the upper levels aren't conducive for further development. The mid-levels are very unstable inland, so all they need is that moisture feed in from the coast and they're ready to explode, and that's what we're seeing Saturday 4 p.m. We're seeing just an explosion of thunderstorm activity. It does sort of drift as far west as Hewenden though, and then nothing further west, so most of the stuff is expected over the south, or the eastern parts I should say, of the northern Goldfields, Upper Flinders, and the basically the entire coastline again looking quite active, and even going as far west as Emerald, in this central Queensland region. So look, that's as far as we'll take it Saturday afternoon, but I would just want to compare some rainfalls between, or some areas of instability between this model, which is the European, which is widely held around the world as the most accurate model, and the GFS model, which also does pretty well in thunderstorm events. So the GFS model is actually very accurate during thunderstorm events. So we're going to go through the GFS model for the next 24 to 36 hours, and we'll do some comparisons. Using the GFS model at 4 p.m. today, we see this area once again, just like the Euro model is showing us, this area around Collinsville and the Burdekin really starting to fire up this afternoon. We're also seeing this area over the northern goldfields, upper Flinders, definite thunderstorm potential, thunderstorm activity developing through there. A little bit of a lull right along the coastline, and also this area near Yeppoon being modelled by both models. But this model particularly doesn't have the resolution to pick up the effect of the ranges to the west of Mackay on the potential for some shower and storm activity west of Mackay or west of that area. So if we continue this modelling through till 7 p.m, we see that by 7 p.m. things tend to ease off a little using this model. We do have some good thunderstorm activity still there, still near Collinsville as well, and this area near Yeppoon is going to be picking up a lot of rain. It might be just offshore though, and we see that continuing through till 10 p.m. tonight, this area of enhanced activity near Yeppoon. Once again, the area here to the north of Mackay around the Whitsundays is looking quite active. We're looking at active weather situation through the Burdekin and the extreme southeastern parts of the northern goldfields, upper Flinders, and also this part here of the northern goldfields, upper Flinders, well to the west of Tully, a long way to the west of Tully, and also this area near Cairns looking at some enhanced activity tonight. By 1 a.m. we're looking at one discrete thunderstorm cell here to the south of Charters Towers, or south-southwest of Charters Towers. However, the modelling isn't suggesting what the Euro was suggesting, which is this shower activity developing off the coast. So I would tend to believe the Euro more than the GFS model for this sort of activity, because the Euro is more likely to pick up on this shower activity, whereas the GFS model is very likely to pick up on storms but miss out on where these showers are going to form. This is by 4 a.m. tomorrow. We're still looking at this enhanced area to the south-southwest of Charters Towers. This Yeppoon region is picking up a hell of a lot of rain over the next 24 hours. As you can see here, very marked trough system pushing right into this area, right through just offshore of Yeppoon. So it might just push onshore if the ridge is strong enough, and we could see some very heavy rainfall on that coastline over the next 24 hours. By 7 a.m. tomorrow, we see most of the stuff is now off the coast. 10 a.m. tomorrow, it starts to encroach the coast again as it pushes westwards, and just offshore between Cairns and Townsville, off this area near the Whitsundays needs to be watched, because both models are picking up some very heavy rainfall there tomorrow. So that's at 10 a.m. This is at 1 p.m. We're looking at, once again, some shower and storm activity developing over the Burdekin, possibly moving as far west as Charters Towers. Also some higher country here to the north of Hewenden, creating some extra shower and storm potential, and this area around Rocky being quite active tomorrow as well. At 4 p.m. we see that activity really ramping up around Charters Towers, and we see this activity to the west of Rocky, between Rocky and Emerald, also being progged by this model, and we continue to see some enhanced shower and storm potential throughout. A little bit of a lull here on the north tropical coast according to this modelling as well. So if we can compare the global forecasting, the GFS model, as to what it does in just above the surface, about 1.5 kilometres, we see these nice moist easterly winds onto the coast, and these winds are easterly throughout the entire region, even as far south as Rocky, so there's definitely no sign that they're going to be too dry. And if we look at the European model at the same time, look at this beautiful moisture feeding in from the east, northeast, northeast in the lower levels. So it's feeding a ton of moisture into the area. And then if we have a look at the moisture in terms of in terms of what's happening, we can see here beautiful amounts of moisture coming into basically the coast, and then also as far west as even Hughenden is looking at some very good moisture levels. Emerald, Rocky. So these areas that are seeing this moisture and are also going to see some intense heating tomorrow are going to fire up, and so we're looking at the similar regions firing up today and tomorrow. Final thing I'd like to take a look at before leaving you today is the cloud cover expected today, 1 p.m. This is our cloud cover, and as we progress through the model run, this is from the Euro model, we see very cloudy through the entire area, so that's going to limit the potential to see any severe sort of storm activity, because if we don't get that heating on the ground, we won't get that drop in temperature as with height, and so this cloud cover will probably keep temperatures reasonably low today. So this is 4 p.m. We see that most of inland areas are expecting a fair bit of cloud, which is going to limit heating. 7 p.m. tonight, the entire region's blanketed with cloud. 10 p.m. tonight. 1 a.m. tomorrow, we start to see a bit of a break in the cloud, but it's only temporary. 4 a.m. tomorrow, we continue to see very cloudy conditions in the entire area. This area to the west of the tablelands could be seeing a bit of a break there. 7 a.m. tomorrow, we've got a little bit of a break here to the west of Collinsville. 10 a.m. tomorrow, most of the area is just blanketed with cloud. There is a bit of a break here in the, I guess, from Proserpine through to just to the north of Yeppoon. And 1 p.m. tomorrow, and this is the key, we're trying to find areas of break in the cloud, because if we see those very moist northeast winds going into an area that's not expecting much cloud cover. Now, models aren't very good at telling you how much rain's going to fall, but they are very good at telling you where the conditions are right for clouds to form. And so if we see areas that have very little cloud, especially in the afternoon hours, so this is Saturday 1 p.m., with a very moist feed of winds coming into them, are going to be very big hotspots for thunderstorm activity and possible strong storm activity. So that's why we can see here by 1 p.m. we should start to see thunderstorms really developing in this region, because there's very little cloud, but there's a lot of moisture. So very little cloud, a lot of moisture equals a lot of heating, and so the potential there for a good thunderstorm development in this region. And then by 4 p.m. we see those storms are fully formed, and so we're blanketed with cloud again. By 7 p.m. we start to see breaks in the pattern, and by 10 p.m. tomorrow we finally start to see a little bit of a break in the weather. So looking at cloudy conditions, showery conditions, stormy conditions in parts, especially if you can get some heat on the ground, you're looking at good thunderstorm potential. However, once again, the limiting factor at the moment is the heating. So very nice moist feed, very uncomfortable. If the sun does happen to come out, it will be extremely uncomfortable for you. So hopefully you can join us again tomorrow. We'll have an update probably tomorrow morning, because I have rugby league commitments tomorrow and on Sunday. So thanks very much for watching. We'll talk again tomorrow.